is up, Nuggets? It's your boy, Killer Pizza, here with a brand new video for you rascals and rapscallions out there. Now for today's video, we have a pretty cool one. This is going to be a Ask Me Anything Q&A Volume 2. I did one for the first time probably almost a year ago at this point, and I had a lot of fun recording it, answering all the great questions, and this time is no different. We have 17 questions, and each and every one of them are pretty great, and I'm excited to talk about all this. And, you know, first of all, I have to thank each and every one of you that ask a question, because if you've watched this channel from any length of time, you know this is kind of a community-driven channel. The whole reason I made this in the first place was because, you know, I watched Street Trash, and I didn't know anybody like that would want to just talk about that all day long, you know, that didn't live like 3-4 hours away. So I made the channel just to talk about obscure cult horror, 80s classics, you know, pro wrestling, all that fun stuff. And I've had so much fun talking with you guys over the years about all this stuff. So anyways, I'm going to hop right into these questions. Hopefully I don't flub this video up or ramble on too long like I tend to do sometimes. But anyways, first question is from Kevin Kruger 86. What is your Scream Factory wish list for 2024? Now, I thought about this one the other night. This is a pretty good question because I tried to think of the titles that Scream Factory would put out, you know, certain titles like for like collector's editions and Blu-rays, like stuff new, you know, because they're mostly doing 4K upgrades. I wouldn't mind seeing like a Blood Beach collector's edition would be kind of cool, or Cheerleader Camp on Blu-ray. I don't believe that's available on Blu-ray in America, it's out of print. What else was I thinking? Maybe like a Prom Night 2 would be kind of fun. Just off the top of my head, I said I thought about this the other night. But when it comes to like 4K upgrades, I was the biggest hater on this in the first place because you're just rebuying all the same shit. But, you know, I have to admit, Scream Factory does some of the best 4K transfers, so there's certain titles I would love to see. First of all, like Night of the Creeps. Not that I think it'd be the greatest 4K upgrade. I just never picked up the Blu-ray, and I got a feeling they're going to put it out, so I'm kind of waiting for it. I think a Sleepaway Camp 1-3 box set on 4K would be pretty badass. I would love that. I own all 3 on Blu-ray, but I'd love to see those get put in a new box set. You know, that'd be pretty cool. My biggest upgrade I would want, like on 4K through Scream Factory, would be a Day of the Dead 4K. It's kind of shocking that, you know, certain titles we have on 4K, but no Day of the Dead. That would look absolutely amazing. That's one of my favorites. That would just be great. But, you know, the one we all know we want, if you're familiar with Scream Factory, is the damn Nightmare on Elm Street box set. We've been waiting for it forever, to the point I don't think it'll ever come out. I'll take it on Blu-ray or 4K. I just want a similar set like we got for Friday the 13th or the Halloween box set through Scream Factory. You know, it would be badass. But if for nothing else, it is the 40th anniversary of Part 1, so if it doesn't get announced this year, I'm hoping maybe we get a 4K out from like New Line or something. You know, I would settle for that. And Kevin had 3 questions. The second one, what are some of your must-own Arrow video titles in your opinion? I would answer this in this video, but I was actually thinking about making a video about that. So I'm going to make a whole separate video for it. I know it's kind of a cop-out. It might come out tomorrow, might come out next week. I am not quite sure. So anyways, we are going to hop into some pro wrestling questions I got. These will be pretty fun. In case some of you guys don't know, I'm an independent pro wrestler out of Michigan, so some fun wrestling questions here. First from Brian. Who is your favorite person to work with? I'll tell you what, there's so many good guys to wrestle out there, you know. There's way more guys I love to work with than guys I don't want to work with, but I would say like the Freebirds, which is my immediate friend group, any one of those guys are a lot of fun to work. I always have a lot of fun working Bojack. We just always have a good chemistry in the ring and whatnot. Then someone like Backwoods Bam, we've been wrestling since the second match I had in this business, and you know, there's just something about the matches we have together that have a certain level of intensity that I can appreciate. You know, you just really feel on fire when you're in there with them. And then a guy like Jeremiah J. Hughes, whether we are teaming up or against each other, I always love working with that guy. He is so damn talented in the ring, and he is one of the guys in the business that I feel I have the most similar, like, psychology and outlook to. Like, we see things very similar. But the main guy I love working with the most is my tag team partner, one half of the Cream Street Mafia, Nick Baker. Because really, what some of you guys may not know is we started off feuding against each other before we became a team. And when we first became a team, we were baby faces. And then we turned into the dastardly heels that you guys know today. So I feel I have to pick Nick Baker, because we have the most fun in the ring. And honestly, you could give us any opponents and we could be baby faces or heels, or we could go one-on-one, baby face or heel or flip-flop, and you could give us 5 minutes, or we call it in the ring, and we could have a good match. I guarantee it. So Nick Baker is my answer. Okay, from Santa Mike, what is the worst bump you have ever taken? Now, I was trying to think about this. Like, you'd think it'd be like a big, nasty bump or anything, but it's funny. Like, some of the bigger bumps, like a power bomb or an electric chair drop on some, like a big guy's shoulders or something off the top rope, are actually kind of fun in a sick way. Like, when you're in the air, the extra hang time is fun. And when it comes to like bigger bumps I've taken a Death Valley driver off the top rope through 2 chairs. I've been thrown off stages through tables. Those aren't too bad because your adrenaline is going so much, and I got out of those unscathed for the most part. So none of those were really too bad. But the one I would pick, besides not really a bump that I'm taking, when some guys come off the top rope and come with a little too much mustard, that kind of sucks. That's pretty shitty. But the worst one I ever had was in a fatal 4-way match against Skulls, Tyson Dean, and Caesar Asher. Skulls lift me up. He chokeslams with the left hand. He's left-handed. And when he put me down, I tore my rotator's cuff. And that was terrible. I rewatched the footage a bunch right after that, and he did nothing wrong. It didn't look like I did anything wrong. I just kind of landed just a little to my side. Not even noticeable, only to me because it happened to me. But I tore my rotator's cuff, and I remember thinking my arm was broken laying there in the ring, and I had to be helped out. And that was one of the shows my family was at, so like I had to really try to no-sell it. It's funny in wrestling, when you're not hurt, you make it look like you're hurt, but when you're actually hurt, you try to make it look like you're not. So that's probably the worst one I had, which was a blessing in disguise, because in my early career, it kind of helped me learn how to get more heel heat rather than just have to rely on big slams and everything. But now I'm slamming motherfuckers again, so there's that. Okay, and we have one more wrestling one here, which I'm going to put both you guys' questions together just because they're kind of similar. Brandon Burnley said, who is your idol in wrestling world, and how did you get started? And then I also have a question from Tony De Jabroni. Which wrestler was your biggest influence that made you want to get into the business? So I always liked guys growing up. First was like Hulk Hogan, and then it kind of went into Bret Hart, just like certain like heroes that I watched when I was young that like made me kind of believe in wrestling. And Bret Hart still holds up to this day. He's my favorite. Just the technical side of him and his selling, just everything all around. But I also really like Roddy Piper on the stick. I like Ric Flair is one of my biggest influences. Scott Hall, Razor Ramon. But actually it was during the Yes movement with Daniel Bryan, now Bryan Danielson. That was around the time I got into the business. I was just really into it and inspired by it. And I kind of fell into the wrestling business by accident in a way. My buddy, my trainer, Uncle Chase Barnett, he had a ring, he had some students, and he was going to run some training, and he asked me if I wanted to check it out. And I had a little bit of a knee injury at the time, and I legit just went to the training session to say, okay, I'll see some old friends, I'll get a workout in, and I'll be able to say I got into a wrestling ring. I was terrified every minute of it. Everything hurt. It was terrible. But when I got in the car and we were leaving, it was like, when's the next time? When's the next time? And that's when the bug got me, and it just became like an addiction that I couldn't stop wrestling. I just fell in love with it there, and almost 8 years now, I am still going strong. All right, then we have one from the Creature Feature, John Campbell. He has 2 questions, but the first one is, what do you think will be the next big trend in horror, in the same vein as how the 80s had slashers and the 90s had meta horror like Scream? Now, I can't put this in stone. Like, I hope these are the trends. This is what I think will happen. With a lot of movies from like A24 and then certain like indie releases I've gotten through, like Scream Team releasing, and even like Terrifier, which was an independent like crowd-funded movie, I'm kind of thinking we're going to go away of some maybe more original horror, like in the vein of like independent films, which I can only hope. But more so, I think we're going to get back to the iconic like horror figures. I think with Terrifier 2, which was absolutely amazing, and Terrifier 3 is coming out this year, it's going to be a Christmas-themed movie. And I know a lot of people actually like Megan and stuff like that. I just think we're getting some more like original killers, and I think Art the Clown, once Part 3 comes out, is going to flip the whole industry where everybody's going to want to start making these horror icons, or at least going for it. At least I'm hopeful that that's the direction we're going to go. And here's one I didn't know if I was even going to read. And this is from Pope Brandon Brownson, one of the guys that got me into YouTube and helped me out a lot. A real good friend of mine. Very funny guy. So he says, how many M&Ms could you fit in your foreskin? If you have the snip, assume that the shit is still intact. How do I answer this? How many M&Ms could I fit? Well, Pope, I guess it just depends on how much of a sweet tooth your mama's got that night. Oh! All right, moving on. Now we got some more horror stuff, some more movie stuff. So, Randy hit me with a three-part question. Trevor Stroud, as you guys may know him as. Three great questions. What is your favorite era of horror? Obviously, the 80s, man. You know, they have the best horror flicks, the most there is. It was the most campy time in horror as well. A lot of range in that. I mean, I pretty much can watch most any horror, but probably like 70s, 80s, and 90s. Kind of like mid 70s through all the 80s and the kind of like all the 90s, really. Because I kind of like some like early 2000 horror movies just for like nostalgia. I don't really care for anything over the past 20 years. Not really my thing. I'm obsessed with the 80s. It's the same with every genre. I love the 80s. Anything from the 80s. Music, any genre of movies, the whole deal. Even the fashion, man. We need to bring it back. Then he asks, what's a recent horror movie that has surprised you? So, one I just mentioned was Terrifier 2, and I'd say that one surprised me just because part one was more exploitation, and honestly, I didn't enjoy it like that much. It was gruesome and whatnot. And when part two came out, it just flipped the whole horror world like upside down. Granted, I think 2 hours and 20 minutes is way too long for a movie, but so vicious, and it just put all the hype in there that Art the Clown has taken over. And like I said, part three is going to be pretty badass. Another one is Talk to Me. It's like an Australian horror flick. You know, the one with the hand, like the party game with the kids. It came, I think, an A24 film. But I love that movie. I was pleasantly surprised. It was a completely original concept, and I just love the movie. The only critique I would give that one was like, if you're going to have a movie that's 2 hours, don't make the third act fall so far from acts 1 and 2, because then it feels like an hour and then an hour of a different movie. That's my only critique, that it got a little supernatural for me. But overall, that's probably my favorite horror movie of the whole year. I absolutely loved it. And then Trevor Stroud, his last question I'm going to mix with somebody else's, because once again it's kind of similar. He says, where do you draw the line with horror, if any at all? And then Prue also asked, is there anything you won't watch horror-wise? So, I'll watch pretty much anything because I believe in like in art. Like, you should be able to push the boundaries. That's what horror is all about in a lot of ways. But certain exploitation films can take it just in a distasteful way. So there's certain stuff. I'll still give a lot of that a shot. I think like some trauma films are just too campy and Adult Swimish for me, where I feel like my brain's melting away when I watch it. But that's more of like my taste in movie-wise. And I'm kind of pretentious, like I said, anything that came out the last 20 years. I don't really care for paranormal movies, but like I'm not against watching them. I think where I draw the line, where I won't watch, is animal deaths in movies. Like, I think three of the worst things in this world is if you abuse elderly children or animals. But when there's abuse of like humans in a movie, it's not real. But in a lot of these like early exploitation films, they're literally killing animals in some of these movies, and I just can't do that. Like, Cannibal Holocaust is one I feel like should be in my collection. It's a well-known classic, but I know they kill like 3 different animals, a monkey, a turtle, and it's just like, I don't really want to watch that shit. Just not for me. There's also one, what is it? Like the Slaughter Vomit Dolls, which is like described as a new subgenre of vomit horror. And I'm like, I'm good, man. I don't really need like a 2 girls, 1 cup kind of horror adaptation. You know what I mean? I'm just not into that. That wouldn't be good. But for the most part, I'll watch the most fucked up movie just once, just to see what it's all about. But yeah, killing animals and puking on each other. It's kind of, I think that's where I draw the line. That's not my thing there. Okay, Creature Feature John Campbell has another question. He says, what is one-off movie do you think would have made a good franchise with sequels? Now, I know you're going to like this answer. It's kind of the obvious one, John, but Brain Scan. Obviously, that's the first one that comes to mind. With Edward Furlong. It's really good. They have this, like, not a creature feature, but they have like a villain, the Trickster, who kind of runs things. I know they were trying to make it like a franchise. I don't know what happened, if it just didn't catch on and whatnot, but I think that's like the best answer I could give. I also think like The Burning could have worked. You could have made it like a Friday the 13th franchise with Cropsey, because, unpopular opinion, I like The Burning more than Friday the 13th Part 1. Also, I could see like Madman, have Madman Mars kind of going on more of a rampage. That could have been a lot of fun. But those are the 3 off the top of my head. I would have loved 1,000 Killer Clowns from Outer Space sequels, but, I think those are the ones that come to my head first. Okay. We have Rick Crow says, best to worst Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I'm sorry, man, I can't answer this question too well because I haven't watched Nightmare on Elm Street in so long. Because like I mentioned in the beginning, I've just been waiting for this box set to come out, so I've been holding off on the movies to the point I need to just throw them back in and watch my regular Blu-ray edition just to watch these. But I will say my top three would be Dream Warriors, the original, and then Part 2. I think Freddy's absolutely vicious in Part 2. Very underrated how evil he is in that one, but really you can't go wrong with any Nightmare on Elm Streets. I even like New Nightmare, as meta as that one was. Is that the right word? It's like, I don't know. I liked them all. I'll have to get back to you on that one. Let me know in the comments what your ranking is. Any one of you guys, All right, then we have, I think, 3 more questions. This is from Jenny. She has 2 questions. Who is your favorite horror film director and why? John Carpenter, all the way. He is the master of horror. It's just almost self-explanatory, but really, I love the way he shoots with his wide lens. I love the way he does his composing, just the way he shoots everything, and how wide of a genre is. Like, The Thing and the original Halloween are in my top 5. Those are 2 of my favorite movies. I actually finally folded and ordered the Thing 4K. I heard it looks great. I got it for $13. It should be here today, actually. But, with that, and then you can go into the range of, like, the non-horror he did. I mean, obviously, horror, Prince of Darkness, The Fog, like, so many good ones. But, like Big Trouble in Little China, Assault on Precinct 13, Escape from New York. Like, there's not really a John Carpenter movie I don't like. And, all the use of Kurt Russell and everything. He's just the most badass. I love John Carpenter. Nobody beats him. And then the second question she had is, what is your biggest disappointment in a movie and why? Oh, well, I am glad you asked. Speaking of John Carpenter, the remakes, Halloween Ends. If you guys haven't seen this, I do a pretty funny review of this. I went on for a half hour heated about this movie. One of the biggest disappointments I've ever had watching any movie in general. I wanted to go to the theaters and watch it. I ended up just going down in my basement and throwing it on like in the movie room. And I've never been more disappointed. I remember watching this and thinking, if I was in the theater, I probably would have walked out. If you want to hear more about that, watch that review. Mostly the Corey deal and how they made Michael look. I could go on and on. That movie, I need to get it in a way just to complete my Halloween collection. I have most every one of them on 4K. Which, to go back to a question earlier, too, with Scream Factory Wishlist, I wouldn't mind seeing the 2 Rob Zombie movies come out on 4K, but I digress. But Halloween Ends, like, I'll probably never watch that ever again in my life. What a disappointment. Absolutely terrible. Made Michael Myers look like a complete jackass. Oh, I hated it, man. Okay, now we're going to swing back to the last question Kevin Kruger had, because I thought this would be a fun way to wrap up the video. So he said, what is your advice to someone who wants to start a horror Blu-ray collection? And before I answer that, I just remembered, I thought there was another comment in the section with a question, but it's not showing up. I don't know if the person deleted it or what, but if I didn't answer your question, please leave it in the comments, and I'll definitely get to it. But yeah, what is your advice to somebody who wants to start horror Blu-ray collection? I would say, first and foremost, you need to know what you want to get, what it is you're collecting, because it's going to be a reflection of yourself, all the titles you have on your shelf. Because at one point I was just grabbing anything I could get, and I have movies, like non-horror flicks I've never opened up that I've had, and I've gotten subscriptions from the horror loot or horror box or whatever it's called, and I've gotten some shitty movies in there, and it's like a waste of time. I would say try to educate yourself on the boutique labels, like a channel like mine, or there's tons and tons of other physical media horror channels where they talk about all the boutique labels. Like, educate yourself with all the boutique labels out there: Scream Factory, Arrow Video, Vinegar Syndrome, Synapse, Severn, 88 Films, Code Red. There's so many. Just kind of compare the prices, because I bought a lot of titles when I first started that were cheaper, when I could have spent another 10 and got the collector's edition, like a 3-disc set. I just was unaware of all that. And I would say budget yourself and don't fall into FOMO, like fear of missing out. Like, just get what you like, keep it nice and easy like that, make it a representation of yourself. You can educate yourself on if certain titles have a 2K or a 4K scan, the Dolby Atmos, all the audio specs. You can figure all that out, see which one is actually better. You know, watch some reviews to compare certain releases. But I would say just get involved in the community online, like Facebook or YouTube, follow some horror groups, and ask questions about like what you should get. And, you know, wait for stuff to go down. I remember the Monster Squad 4K was like $50 or something like that, and I waited a little bit, and I ended up getting it for like $25-30. So I would say just educate yourself on the community with all the boutique labels, collect what you want, don't worry about the fear of missing out, and just have fun with it. Most of all, you know, your collection's a representation of yourself. You know, I hope that answered the question right. But anyways, those are all the questions from you guys. Hopefully you liked the answers. I did my best. I had a lot of fun doing this video, and I wouldn't mind doing one again in the future. But yeah, leave some comments if you have any follow-up questions, or anybody watching this video, if you have some questions, maybe we'll do a round 3, or I'll answer it in the comments or in the next video or whatnot. But anyways, it is Royal Rumble Day. I need to get ready. It's going down tonight. Who do you guys think is going to win the Royal Rumble, huh? The Great Khali? All right. Anyways, thanks again, guys. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all that fun jazz if you want. Blood, guts, gore. I'll check you guys next time.